Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Tonia, and I'm joining you from YW Calgary Continuing Education. It's my pleasure to be here today to deliver this webinar on the topic of domestic violence, the what, the why, and the how to raise awareness, intervene, and support those impacted by family and domestic violence. We're also recognizing November and it being Family Violence Prevention Month. Before I get started, I'm just going to provide a land acknowledgement. We are gathered in Mohkinstsis on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Ghana, Vagani, the Tsuut'ina, the Iarhi Nakota Nations, and the Otipemisiwak Métis government of the Métis Nation within Alberta, Districts 5 and 6. At YW Calgary, we're committed to truth and reconciliation. We are committed to using our platform to build respectful relationships with Indigenous communities. We look for ways to amplify Indigenous voices, celebrate the vibrance of Indigenous culture, and support all women and their families to thrive in a safe and equitable community. A bit about me. I'm the Director of Counseling and Outreach at YW. I also oversee our YW Continuing Education program. I've been with YW since 2015, and I'm also a registered social worker. I began my career in children's services on the East Coast. I grew up in Newfoundland, and then I moved to Calgary and joined the nonprofit sector to focus on family violence work and the continuum of prevention to intervention. Our YW Continuing Education programs offers several courses, and you can check them out on our website at ywcalgary.ca under Continuing Education. By the end of this webinar, you'll be able to define domestic violence, have a basic understanding of why domestic violence occurs, recognizing the signs and risk factors related to domestic violence, and just be able to engage in conversations about domestic violence. A bit of a content check-in. Because we're tackling a tough topic today, I just want to recognize that discussions of violence and trauma can bring about strong emotions. So if you need to take a moment for yourself or step away, please do so. On a positive note, while the topic is heavy and it can even feel scary at times, being more prepared to help someone stay safe from domestic violence doesn't have to be. So whether you're somebody who works directly with people, supporting people who've experienced family violence or impacted by family violence, or not so much, not in a direct way, hopefully you're able to take something from this webinar today, whether it's a reminder about the work that we do, or just feeling more equipped to be able to engage in conversations and just be a supportive person or a community to help make our communities a safe place. So, domestic violence and the importance of language. So, during today's presentation, I may use language that's gendered. And even though gender is no longer perceived as binary, the information shared today reflects language that has been used up to this point. And we know that when it comes to domestic violence, the academics, the sector, thought leaders, research, it continues to catch up when it comes to language. And we try to use person first language. However, for the sake of convenience and time, we do use terms like survivor, victim, perpetrator. I also want to break down that binary that it's even though we talk about how to help other people who've been impacted by family violence, or how we can support people of diverse communities better. I also do want to recognize that um, even though we use that language and we speak in that way, we also recognize that service providers and And people in this field can also be impacted by family violence, or can also certainly be a member of different diverse communities. And so it's not meant to set up an us versus them. It's just more so for convenience sake when we speak about how we can help other people impacted by violence, or how we can support diverse communities. And so it's not to say that that helping professionals and the we can also include people who are also impacted by these issues, or who also identify as a diverse community. So just wanting to make that clear, because sometimes when the information is presented in this way, it can feel like it's like it's there's a divide. And so one of our courses that we teach in continuing education is all about domestic violence in the workplace. And so that one kind of dives into that we can ourselves also be included in people who are impacted by domestic violence, or it could be our colleagues, it could be the people in our workplaces. And so recognizing how we can be a support to to others, and that how it affects everyone. Okay, so time to dive in. Let's look at the definitions and the difference between family violence and domestic violence. So family violence is really an umbrella term, and it includes elder abuse, child maltreatment, and domestic violence. Whereas domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence, is more specific. It's defined as a pattern of behavior in any relationship that's used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. Abuse can be physical, sexual, emotional, economic, psychological actions, or threats of actions that influence another person. Domestic violence is also referred to intimate partner violence, or IPV, and this can occur when a couple is living together or separately, people who are dating or married, during a relationship, as well as after it ends. So again, family violence is the umbrella term, and domestic violence is a specific form of that. We also know that domestic violence can show up in many forms. And so you can look at the list here and think of examples under each. So for example, physical can include all types of things like pushing, shoving, punching, kicking. I highlight strangulation. So strangulation is a lethal form of assault. It can occur in unconsciousness and death within minutes. And so strangulation is always taken very seriously. Emotional and psychological, it can be many things as well. Isolation, being verbally demeaning, threats, threatening suicide if a partner were to leave a relationship. The behavior can also be dismissed as humor. So comments like "I was kidding," "Don't be so sensitive," gaslighting a partner. All those can be described as emotional or physical or psychological. Sexual can be anything from forced sex to forced pregnancy or forced termination, controlling access to contraception, forced participation in any kind of sexual activities with others. There's many examples under there of sexual violence. Stalking can occur in either living together or not living together. It's also referred as criminal harassment. And it occurs when a person does any of the following: repeatedly following someone from place to place, or any person known to them. So it doesn't even have to be the individual, but it could be a family member or friend of theirs that they're stalking. Repeated communication, either directly or indirectly, with the person, or again, anyone who's known to them, watching their place of residence, uh, or where they work, or where they frequent, engaging in threatening conduct, again, directed at either the person or even another member of their family or someone close to them. Technology is used in a number of ways to enact violence. Could be used for surveillance. It could be used for posting or distribution of sensitive materials, stalking, harassment. Many examples of technology, especially in the world that we live with so many technology advancements. There's the financial category. It could mean keeping a victim dependent or financially vulnerable, um, ruining their credit, forcing them to ask for money, controlling all their finances, interfering with their ability to have an income or to maintain a job or source of a source of income. Okay, so those are just some of the examples. Now we will look at some statistics from Stats Canada. This was pulled in or gathered in 2023. And so looking at the year of 2022 and police reported incidents of intimate partner violence. So again, this would just be incidents that were reported to the police. We know that there's many incidents that go unreported or that isn't a part of these statistics, but police were able to gather that 117,093 victims of intimate partner violence in Canada in 2022. The rate of IPV or intimate partner violence was 3 times higher for women and girls than for men and boys. And also that the rates were higher than previous years. So higher than the rates in 2019, which was the year before the onset of the pandemic, higher than in 2020, the first year of the pandemic. And that also there was a 46% increase in police reported violence against seniors, regardless of gender, between 2014 and 2022. Then we just look at some provincial figures. So Saskatchewan would have the highest number of police reported victims, followed by Manitoba. Prince Edward Island had the lowest, and then Alberta was somewhere in the middle. So looking at 388 per 100,000 in Alberta. And then we're also interested in domestic violence related homicides in Alberta and looking at the most recent Death Review Committee meeting, which information from 2020 and 2021. It revealed that there were 18 deaths in Alberta, 15 identified victims, 3 identified as perpetrators. The majority of the incidents had a female victim and a male perpetrator. 61% of those incidents involved a weapon. And most of the victims and perpetrators were between the ages of 20 and 39. The other thing that I'll mention here about risk factors, firearms. So access to firearms and knowledge of how to use firearms increases the odds of intimate partner homicide by 11 times. So access to firearms is always taken very seriously. And strangulation. So strangulation increases the risk of homicide by 7 times. So, for example, again, with the police, those are things that they certainly pay attention to. Is when it comes to risk, is access to firearms and if strangulation is used as a form of violence. So let's briefly just talk about domestic violence in diverse communities and how it affects some of these diverse communities. So some of these stats are taken from self-reported data in a 2018 survey. When it comes to young women, they were found to be 5 times more likely than women over the age of 25 to have been sexually assaulted by a partner. 3 times more likely to have been physically assaulted, and 3 times more likely to have been financially or psychologically abused. So that's young women. And then Indigenous persons, in particular women, are more likely to having reported experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime compared to non-Indigenous women. 64% of First Nations women and 65% of Métis women reported having experienced violence in their lifetime. Gender and sexually diverse, almost half or 49% of gender and sexually diverse women indicate having been physically or sexually abused by an intimate partner violence. Disability, 55% of women who identifies as living with a disability um, reported some intimate partner violence in their lifetime. And then for visible minorities or people who identify as being in a visible minority, 29% of visible minority women report having experienced physical, psychological, or sexual violence in their lifetime. And so um, with nearly 2/3 of Canadians believing that they know somebody impacted by domestic violence, it's important that more community members know how to effectively recognize risk factors and be able to respond to domestic violence, or at least be a helping person and help someone connect with other resources or connect with supports during that time. Okay, so why does domestic violence occur? Over the years, there's been different theories that help explain why domestic violence occurs. So we're just going to have a look at these three here. Psychological theories look at violent behavior, look at the individual. So see violent behavior as a result of childhood experiences, personality traits, personality disturbances, if there's a head injury or brain injury, is there substance use, some kind of mental health issue. It really looks at the individual characteristics. Sociological theories sees family violence as the result of interactions between families and their broader communities. So looking at kind of more social problems and how social issues can influence the behavior of individuals and families. And feminist theory sees violence as an expression of sexism and patriarchy, and that violence is about dominance of one gender over another. And so many people ask, what do we believe here at YW Calgary? What stance do we take when it comes to why domestic violence occurs? And so what we say is that we've adopted a multifactorial understanding of domestic violence. And that's basically a fancy way of saying that all of these theories are in part correct and useful, and that we see domestic violence as an interaction of different factors at all levels. And so it's a bit of a blend of the individual, the community level, societal level. It's a blend of all of these theories, and that the issue of domestic violence is quite complex. And so it is an interaction of all of these theories and all of these levels. And so we really emphasize, again, the complexity surrounding why it occurs, and that there isn't just one way of looking at it, or one theory, or one intervention, or one way that we can interact or intervene. Because the way we understand an issue will influence the way that we try to intervene, and the services that we offer, the programs we offer. It's why our organization offers a variety of programs, and we really work from that continuum of prevention to early intervention to intervention. And there's many ways that we can intervene and support families who are impacted by domestic and family violence. What to watch for. So let's talk about the difference between safety and risk. One is about imminent right now, and one is about the future. So safety is about imminent. It's what's happening right now, what kind of safety planning or measures are in place right now. Risk is looking more into the future, looking at different risk factors that we know can contribute or be fueling factors, or just predict potential for future family violence. And then the other thing that I'll add about the understanding of why domestic violence occurs and how we intervene is thinking about, of course, in our counseling program, we're one of the provincial uh, providers of treatment for family violence. And so there's a number of, in that program, there's a number of modules, there's a number of weekly sessions and different things that we focus on when we're providing that intervention. And so it really is all those layers from individual to more social issues, gender issues. So we cover things like anger management, impulsivity management, understanding domestic violence and gender roles, substance use. There's many skills that we teach around emotion regulation and uh, empathy, boundaries, and so all of these things are important because they're contributing to the issue. They could be that they're risk factors or lead up factors, and so when we're providing programming to intervene on family violence, we really look at all of those levels. And so this table, this chart provides examples of different factors that can increase the risk of intimate partner violence and domestic violence. And so the presence of one or more of these factors, it doesn't necessarily mean that violence will occur, but from that multifactorial lens, we know that there can be an interaction of these factors, and that interaction can give rise to risk for future violence. And when it comes to things like mental health and addictions, we we know that they can't be used as excuses for behavior. We believe that adults are responsible for their actions and their behaviors, but again, we can see them as if someone's struggling with their mental health or struggling with substance use and addictions, it can make a person more vulnerable to using violent behavior, or it can intensify the violence. And so we want to be able to pay attention to those areas and find ways to intervene and address that as well. So, how to engage in conversations and build awareness. Again, we know that domestic violence can be an intimidating issue. And hopefully, the good news is you don't have to be a domestic violence expert to help someone who's experiencing these issues. There's never been a better time to just feel more equipped to help somebody, to support somebody impacted by family violence, and just to help contribute to a safer community. And that we know that small steps can have a big impact. So, recognizing help seeking behavior. What do we mean by help seeking behavior? So we know that when people are facing family violence or domestic violence, they're often more likely to disclose the abuse to an informal support or just somebody in their circle, whether it's a friend or a family member or just somebody that they see as safe and helpful. And that's often who they'll turn to first, even before they may or may not access more formal services, but they will reach out to somebody who's caring. So the best thing that you can do is be that safe person, be that caring person who's there to listen non-judgmentally, to help, to offer information or resources, or to listen and just um, have empathy and be a caring, supportive person. And then the non-judgmental piece is really important because help seeking behavior shows up in all kinds of different ways. We know that women with children, they may delay seeking formal services due to that desire to do what's best for their children, to try to see if they can end the abuse in their relationship. Often the person that they're with, they love, they care about, they just want the abuse to stop. And so there could be a period of time where they do they do various things to make the abuse stop and to improve their relationship. We see people who may leave or attempt to leave a relationship several times and may go back. They have reasons for leaving, which is usually because of the abuse and the violence, but they have reasons that they stay as well and that they're trying to do their best. If they have children, they're trying to do the best for their children, for their family. There could be many kind of factors at play of why they're staying in the relationship and some of that help-seeking behavior that they're engaged in. And so survivors, victims, they may waver between leaving the relationship. It's a part of the journey for many people. Again, minority groups or equity seeking groups may be hesitant to engage in formal services for a variety of reasons. It could be language barriers, cultural considerations, or just uncertainty if who they can trust, and the cultural appropriateness of formal services in our community. And so not everybody will come to a shelter or reach out to formal services. And so it's important to be a safer community, is to engage in more conversations with more people in our community about domestic violence and what are the risk factors and how can you help. And so we will talk about resources in our community. And the one thing that I want to talk about is our emergency shelters and our crisis lines. They're not just a shelter or a place for somebody to go. A lot of people will call crisis lines and emergency shelters and never actually go to the shelter or stay at the shelter, but it can be a resource that can provide lots of information, lots of other resources, whether it's outreach services in the community or other things that they can get connected with. So they really do serve as a great resource, and it's important for the public and for people to know that these are resources in our community that you can point people to if they need it. Second stage shelters they're shelters where people can stay a bit longer, whereas emergency shelters are very short term. And second stage shelters will often provide more wraparound supports for a longer period of time. Also, there's plenty of information and resources online. I highlight alberta.ca and the family violence prevention resources, the find shelters at alberta.ca. There's also a shelter link that's also connecting our shelters together and providing more of a system of care. There's our family violence info line where people can call or text. There's an abuse helpline. lawcentralalberta.ca has a lot of legal resources and information on there as well. So even if you know some of these or at least one phone number, at least one resource and place that you can point someone in the direction of, that's always helpful. So that wraps up the webinar on domestic violence, the what, why, and how. And so again, you can check out our website for more information about our YW continuing education program. We are a approved provider of continuing education through the Association of Social Work Boards. And so that means that we offer a number of courses for human services professionals where they can take the training and get a certificate, and their credits become recognized by their professional bodies, which is really great. So if you check out, again, ywcalgary.ca under continuing education, you will see a list of our courses. And so again, these are ways that you can get in touch with us. We have a number of courses in domestic violence safety planning, and there's domestic violence in the workplace, substance use and domestic violence, mental health and domestic violence. There's introduction to supervision and trauma-informed supervision. So please check us out, and you can register for our courses through our website. So thank you again for tuning in today and watching this webinar. I hope you were able to take some things from it and reflect on the ways that you can support people impacted by family violence. So thank you for being here and contributing to a safer community.